welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we have the countdown to Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara. We have some NBA talk as we get closer to the All-Star weekend, and then also Hall of Fame voting. Is this something that should be as strenuous as it is, or is Bill Belichick getting the short end of the stick? Starting off with the NFL, and we have Super Bowl 60 countdown on the way. First off, I'd like to say, these picks were pretty obvious, coming out of the AFC and NFC championship games. I think that the Patriots played themselves into, a game that was just, backyard football in a sense in the second half against the Broncos. You had Drake May using his legs, getting enough first downs to keep the Broncos off the field. A lot of back and forth with punts, obviously, no scoring, but they were able to survive. Give them credit going into Mile High, but they're going to be facing a tougher task with the Seattle defense and offense, with the Seahawks. Seahawks and Rams, you really had a back and forth showdown. I think the turning point was when the Rams muff that punt and the Seahawks get the ball and go and score. It ends up being an 11-point game, and then Stafford has to play Superman from coming from behind, and just wasn't able to get enough stops and enough time left to get the win. So I think all the credit goes to Sam Darnold and the whole team, as JSN was picking away at that LA defense, and I think that it's going to be a problem for the Patriots heading into Super Bowl 60. But also, it's a legacy game, right? You have two quarterbacks, one that was almost pushed out the league and the other in his second year, could make a statement to become the next guy in the league and, hop some of these, prototype top 5 quarterbacks where you have a Burrow, a Lamar, Josh Allen. I don't think that this singular Super Bowl puts them in that category on the fact that there's just not enough body of work compared to what guys like Lamar, who have won multiple MVPs, Josh, an MVP. I mean, Drake May is in the running for an MVP. I don't think he gets it with the way Stafford finished the year. But I think if, say Drake May wins this Super Bowl, where does this put him in the, as they like to say on, first things first, the Mahomes Mountain? I think he definitely gets put into that top category. I think people will start talking about him as if he is, maybe in that Lamar, Joe category. I think Joe Burrow can tend to get inflated based off that one Super Bowl run he had. And if, Drake May wins it, I think, it knocks Burrow down just because of the health issue, right? I mean, the stats could be there, but I think durability is also a factor. But I think Drake May has an opportunity to showcase who he is and the type of legacy he's trying to build, especially in a place like New England where their culture is winning. So I mean, respect to them. And then on the Seattle side, I think Sam Darnold has a chance to solidify him, get that max bag that he's been looking for, because I personally believe that Seattle got him on a discount on the fact that he'd won 14 games, lost his last 2 in a ugly fashion, and people were still skeptical. I think a lot of people thought we're not as high on him as people would have thought earlier in the season, given the fact that he had won, I think, 14 or 15 games with the Vikings, and so the Seattle really just lucked into it. But he's really played himself into a top shape, and if he can get his own Super Bowl, I think he could be, put up a couple more years into that Russ category. I think he has a long runway ahead just with the style that he plays and, the smarts that he has with being able to, chuck the football down the field. So it'll be interesting to see how Super Bowl 60 will show out. It's not a star-studded affair like you've seen in the past with, Mahomes versus Brady or, Hurts versus Mahomes. It's going to be a different flavor, but, I think the last time Seahawks Patriots played, it was a showdown with, Brady versus Russ. So I expect it to be closer than people realize. I know that the Seahawks came out as favorites, but my pick as of early right now, I'm going with the Seahawks, just given their more complete, well-rounded team, and they've gone through a lot of good teams, with San Francisco, LA, play teams like that. They've really showed that they're a legit contender. So that's my Super Bowl pick right now, but we're going to transition into the NBA. And, last night we had the Cavs taking on the Lakers in what could have been LeBron's final game in Cleveland after 20-something years in the league. And you had Bronny getting some, minutes after the Lakers were just getting demolished in Cleveland. So it's really crazy to see. LeBron looks worn out. He doesn't look like he has, anything left in the tank. So if I were him, I would probably want to do that versus going out and not being able to play all the games that he would want to in his final season, just given his health. And you could see that he doesn't have that same fire. The team isn't right with, Austin Reeves being out and things like that. I just don't know if it's worth having a farewell tour. But I feel like he's at a point where he could be content with where he's at with the amount of minutes, championships, points, rebounds, assists. Like, he's gotten to a point. And then on the other side, the Cavs are on a push, right? They're climbing in the East, a wide open East with Detroit on top. You have Boston without Jason Tatum. You have the Knicks, who have really kind of melted down in a sense internally. So I think the Cavs have a nice opening that they can try and take advantage of. So I felt that was something to look into. And then you also have Giannis. I think that, the Bucks are in a very tough situation where they have a former MVP, Finals MVP, wanting basically out. There's trade rumors. This could be the year Giannis finally goes, but where is he going to go? So I think the Bucks are nuking their situation, and any team that gets Giannis will have to adapt to play around Giannis. I don't think he's going to take a back seat at this point. I think he's still in his prime. So whoever ends up getting him will be having to adjust. So I think the East is, as predicted, it's wide open heading into this season. And it's kind of showcased that. It's like, can Detroit get over the hump and actually be clutch in the playoffs? Or are they going to systematically fall to veterans? Kind of what the NBA is all about is, do you have the experience? And then, the Hall of Fame, we had some controversy with Bill Belichick not getting in the first ballot. A lot of people are saying it's because of the way he's treated past coaches, players throughout his time in the NFL. And, I'm kind of mixed opinion on that. I feel like, the work he's done should just be that you're in. And because they know that he's going to get in eventually, they're not pressed to get him in and use his demeanor as a reason for him not to be in, is what I've heard. But I truly believe that is not the way that it should be handled. It should be, are you the best? You get in. It shouldn't be guys who are on the fringe of getting in that get in over him because of the fact that they know he'll eventually be a Hall of Famer and have that gold jacket. But kind of a disrespect to him. But either way, I think that he's going to get in, but it's just a matter of how. And I think it just shows you that some things are just not as certain as you think that they would be. So if you like what you see, go ahead and like and subscribe. We'll have more content closer to the Super Bowl. NBA, we have the All-Star Weekend approaching, and so I'd like to dive in and do a little bit more on the All-Star selections and kind of what this means moving forward. So go ahead and like and subscribe.